Welcome everybody to another edition of the Bag Talk Show, where we bring you the experts in money, investing, and everything wealth. So we want to make sure you like, share, leave a comment, leave a question in the comment section.
I love that you have both shirts.
Absolutely. What's going on, Marge? Make sure you like, share, leave a comment or question. Today, we have a very special guest with us. So we're going to talk about business, entrepreneurship, specifically franchising. So we have Mrs. Chanel Grant with us. She's an ODU alumni, entrepreneur, business owner, youth advocate, and much more. So Chanel, I appreciate you taking the time to school us on franchising and entrepreneurship.
Of course, my pleasure.
All right. So let's get straight into it. So I gave you a brief introduction, but for the people that don't know you, can you give the people a quick background on just who you are and all that stuff?
For sure. So my name's Chanel, as you mentioned. I hear a little bit of an echo though.
I do too. Is your computer sound off?
It is. Let me see. All right, how about now? I think that's a little better.
Yep.
Okay.
No, fine here.
All right, cool. So my name is Chanel. Went to ODU, as you mentioned. Well, now I hear a little bit of echo.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an echo. Let me make sure it is not.
Let me get back to the school board meeting.
Sounds off here.
I can work through it if we need to. But... Hi, Twyla. See you on Zoom.
Is the echo coming?
Hey, Chanel.
Let me try this. All right, we still getting an echo?
I can't hear you now.
You can't?
Now I can hear you.
All right. Is there still an echo?
No, I think we're good.
All right. All right, cool.
Very cool.
Let's see.
So my name is Chanel. Went to ODU. Actually studied exercise science and sports management. Ended up not doing anything in that now with my career. Full time, I'm in pharmaceutical sales. And about 5 years ago, my mom, my sister, and I decided to do something outside of our corporate jobs. And just kind of wanted to build something more than just, what we can make out of our corporate job and things like that. And so that's how we got into franchising. So now we own 3 tropical smoothie cafes in the Maryland area, as well as a hand and stone massage and facial that will open up next month. And we're also involved with Choice Hotels as franchisees, and we're in the process of developing our first hotel. So that is a little bit about me. I live in Miami right now.
Okay. All right, bet. So this is typically a finance, wealth building type of show. So what's like your experiences with finances? Is that something that you learned in the house growing up? Something that you had to learn outside of the house? When you got to college, kind of how did finances and wealth building start kind of come into your consciousness?
definitely learned about finances like when I was a child, for sure. I remember like my parents like teaching me if I got $10 for my birthday, I should save five and I should spend five and like, different things like that. So I definitely remember, learning those kind of fundamentals growing up. I also watched my parents be entrepreneurs. So my mom and my dad built several businesses from the ground up. And so, I mean, it was all around me when I was a kid, for sure.
Okay. All right. Nice, nice. So I think it's helpful to have that background, right? Because then they have the experience, you can feed off of their experience.
For sure.
How would you say that kind of like affected you growing up, that you got it earlier than I think a lot of other people would have got it, right?
For sure. I mean, it's a blessing. I feel like even as business savvy as I am right now, I really think it has to do with, I was like working in my mom and dad's business. Literally, like, I'll joke and I'll say I've had a job since I was like 5, but like, it's true. Like every business they had, like I found something to do within the business. So I literally I think I was in like 7th grade. They owned a business and I was like in charge of marketing. So I was doing like, different things in the business, but that makes a big difference, just kind of being around that all the time. So I definitely think that that's given me kind of a springboard in business and just in life, honestly.
Yeah. All right. That's super dope. Like I always look at like restaurateurs that have their kids there working the cash machine and things like that. And like when you grow up that way, or like if you're a real estate investor and you're painting houses as a kid, like you're that's already half the game. Like you kind of know the game a little bit, so it's much easier to get in.
And it's
so
also like
dope.
It instills work ethic. Like I wasn't doing anything like not sexy jobs. Like at one point they owned a cleaning company, and my sister and I would stack chairs. Like so they it wasn't like we were doing like good jobs. It was just like it just instilled work ethic, and I got to see like the hustle and the grind that it takes to be successful in business. And I think that has given me so much more perspective, like as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so you said you went to school for exercise science, didn't want to pursue that after you got out of school. So what was like what was kind of the change? What kind of sparked the change to want to go into business and entrepreneurship instead of going a route with exercise science?
Yeah, so exercise science was my minor, sports management was my major. So I really thought I wanted to go into like sports sales, sports marketing. I did an internship with the Redskins and all that, and it was very fun. But when I started looking at like the starting salaries and like things like that, honestly, money was like the driver. I kind of always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur just because of growing up and watching my parents build their businesses. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to kind of like have the capital that was needed if I went in that field. So to be really honest, the money was kind of the driver that took me in another direction. So I actually kind of was just applying to a bunch of random different jobs. And a family friend of mine was in pharmaceutical sales and was like, oh, you can make a lot of money and you have a lot of flexibility and all these things. And I'm like, wow, like all that sounds like kind of what I need in order to pursue like my entrepreneurial goals. And so that's really how I segued into pharmaceutical sales. And before that, I worked at a nonprofit, and I'm like, oh, I really love this work. And, but I just knew that I needed a certain type of job in order to springboard me to like where I am now. And so luckily pharmaceutical sales has been able to do that.
Okay. All right. Nice. All right. So are you still in pharmaceutical sales or?
I am. So still working my 9 to 5. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Juggling all of it.
Yep. So let's talk about like your transition or, leading up to you being a franchise owner. So I know you're not just a franchise owner, right? You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're a nonprofit owner. So talk about leading up to the franchise idea.
All right. Are you saying like kind of like what steps did I take to prepare? Or
so I want to bridge the gap between college, starting the 9 to 5, and then you getting to being a franchise owner. So maybe did a business get you started and then you kind of snowballed on that?
Gotcha. So after I graduated college, again, like I always knew that business and entrepreneurship was kind of in my mind. So I aggressively started, and I got my real first job. I aggressively started like paying off my student loans, not getting in any more debt, saving, and different things like that. So that was kind of like step number one. And of course, I kind of built in my career also so I could make more, and do I need to make more to have more money down for the business and things like that. So it just kind of like evolved within my career. And I think I was 25, like 24, 25, like once I started in my entrepreneurial journey. So it was really just like building in my career, not getting in any more debt, and paying off the debt I did have, like my student loans, different things like that, building my credit. I knew that that would be important. So just kind of taking like a lot of financial steps to be better prepared and better equipped to be an entrepreneur. Because of course your credit and all the liquidity and all those different things are going to play a really big role in it. And again, because I watched my parents do this already, I kind of knew that. So instead of making certain decisions, I was like, I knew I had to make smart money decisions in order to be in a better position. So
yeah, that's good to hear that you started with getting your financial house in order, because I like to say, before you try to sail the boat, you got to plug the holes, right? So like before you take on a business or an investment that might take some initial capital, you got to make sure that capital is just not flowing out of your boat first. So it's really good to hear that you said, all right, let's get the financial house in order first, and then we can go and do everything else, knowing that I have the backbone that I need.
One of the things, I moved back home with my parents or with my mom and like saved for a bunch of years, like, and just certain things like that. Like at that time I was like, of course I wanted to get like my own place or move out and different things. But now when I look back, I'm like, thank God I did what I did, because it just definitely set me up to be in a better position. So sometimes it's that sacrifice that you take temporarily that, will really equip you to have like that long-term success. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the specific franchise idea. How did this come about?
So as I said earlier, I had watched my parents build their own brands and own companies from like the ground up in the garage, like that true grind, true hustle. And while that is awesome, me, my mom, and my sister, when we were first thinking about getting into business, we knew that we didn't have like the wherewithal and the cycles to do that. Yeah. We all were working full-time corporate jobs. We all couldn't quit at that moment, to focus solely on our brand or our business that we were going to start. So that's 100% why we chose franchising. They give you a blueprint, they give you a model. It's a faster ramp. You don't have to spin your wheels thinking about, systems and processes and things of that nature. They're giving you everything you need. And essentially, if you choose the right location and you follow the blueprint, you will make money because they've already worked out all of those kinks. Whereas if we opened up Chanel's Smoothie Shop, I got to figure out what technology are we going to use, what POS system, how are we going to market, how are we going to brand, all those things, and we didn't have to think about that. And so all of us work our 9-to-5 jobs. And my mom just quit. We just celebrated 4 years actually for our first store today. And my mom quit her job maybe a year and a half ago. So, for 2.5 years, we all were still working a corporate job. And then my sister and I still work our 9-to-5, even now to this day. So we knew that in order to be able to do that, we needed a blueprint and something that we could ramp faster.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big advantages with doing a franchise is they've done some of the work for you, right? A lot of the work, really. And you get the benefit off of that. Of course, you still have to put the work in, make sure the business is going, get the location. So location, I noticed that was something that, in doing my research, looking at your website, looking at the interviews and the press and all that stuff, it seems like location is pretty important when it comes to franchising. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
For sure. So, like with anything, obviously picking the right location is going to be very important to your success. The great part, again, about franchising is that they do provide some support there. So the majority of the brands will have an entire real estate team, on their corporate team that will help you identify the best location to put whatever the brand is. So specifically for a tropical smoothie, they say that, you know, in order to be successful, you need to be next to a main grocery store as an anchor. So if you're Harris Teeter, or something like that, you want to be near a gym and places where their demographic is going. So nail shops, hair salons, different things like that. And that's their, you know, demand generators, and they'll help guide you to the location that is by all of those places. So there's a lot of support in that. Obviously, they want to put you in a location that's successful because you make royalties off of everything you make. So there's a lot of support in picking the right location. And I always say it takes so much time to find the right location. A lot of times when I'm mentoring like clients or something, they'll say like, well, how long is this process going to take? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like it could take, and honestly, it could take a really long time. Like I think our second location, choosing that took well over 12 months. And we're probably into like 13, 14 months. And it's okay because you're signing a 10, sometimes longer, 10 plus year lease. And a lot is on the line. So, you know, patience in finding the right location is so important. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Okay, what we're getting into is a little bit more of the nitty gritty of the franchising. So let's talk about that first store. Like what were the first steps of you all getting that first store and really making it happen?
Yeah, so after deciding like, okay, we want to go with franchising, one thing that we did, and this I also suggest this a lot to like our mentoring clients, is that you have to figure out, you know, what really speaks to you. Of course, like with any business, there's blood, sweat, and tears that have to go into it. So you want to make sure that you're choosing a brand that you're really passionate about or a product that you're really passionate about. So that was our first step, was thinking like what's important to us and or what's missing in our community. So we lived at that time in Prince George's County, and it's a predominantly Black county. We were missing a lot of healthy food options, services, all of those things. Like I looked around and it was like a Bojangles, a McDonald's, that was it. And so moving from Northern Virginia into Prince George's County, we're like, this entire community is missing these services and these healthy food options. So that was initially what we did. We found the problem, and then we found like what we were passionate about. And it's healthy living, it's healthy eating. That's something that we've always been passionate about. And so that was kind of like our starting point. Our business name is actually Healthy Living Ventures. And like everything we do is kind of falls under that healthy living aspect, which is why the spa makes sense and the healthy food, tropical smoothie. But that was the very first step. You got to figure out, you know, what are you going to be passionate about? You're going to invest a lot of money in this. So you want to make sure that it's just something that you can, you know, put those blood, sweat, and tears in and feel good about it. So that's initially how we got to a healthy food concept. And then once we got there, you know, we had to figure out what brands make sense for us. So we reached out to all of the smoothie brands. There's Robex and Smoothie King and all those. And surprisingly enough, like not many of them reached back out to us. Tropical Smoothie did. And then, so we started kind of like the investigation process there, talking to the brand, figuring out what they're looking for. A lot of times brands will have liquidity requirements or net worth requirements. So just kind of learning, like, what do we need to get prepared to actually buy this franchise? Figuring out if we like the people, the leadership, that's huge. You know, having those conversations to make sure that your vision aligns with the leadership. And then I guess that was kind of like the main first steps, narrowing it down to like exactly what brand you're gonna, you know, go with. And the reason that we chose Tropical Smoothie over some other brands was that it had food involved, whereas a lot of the other smoothie brands only had smoothies. So we live in Maryland, it gets cold, we didn't want to see a dip in revenue in the wintertime. Whereas some other brands do see a little bit of a dip in the colder months. So that was initially kind of, the financials made sense. We loved the leadership, we loved their responsiveness. The fact that like some of the other brands never even got back to us, we're like, that tells me a little bit about the support that we're gonna get. And I always say that, like, if you can't get a hold of a brand and you haven't, I mean, I don't know, I feel like that's a big indicator of, you know, the type of support you're going to get. So initially that was how we kind of started.
Okay. All right, yeah. If they're not hitting you back when you're trying to give them your business, that's a red flag.
It's always a red flag for us. So, and that's actually funny enough. That's how we've chosen so far all of our brands is who got back, the quickest, who was willing to meet with us, have lunch with us, coffee, whatever, and really talk about, what the brand can offer to us as franchisees. Like if they were like, oh, we'll call you in 2 weeks now, like you should be getting back to us promptly, and giving us the information that we need. So that's so far how we've chosen all the brands.
Okay. How long would you say like the research portion of all this took you?
I would say maybe like 6 months or so, from like idea to signing a franchise agreement, maybe like 6 months. And then the timeline from signing that actual franchise agreement to like opening up was another like 12 months. So it definitely was a lengthy process, but the reason that our process was a little bit longer as far as opening was because we chose a brand new shopping center. So the shopping center had to be built and different things like that. If you were choosing like a second generation space, then it definitely could have been a quicker process to as far as like when you opened.
Yeah. Okay. So we got.
All right, the service is a little bad. I lost you.
We're doing franchise. What's involved in like the formal process? You sit down with the franchise.
I lost you. Can you all still hear me?
What happened?
Oh, thank you. All right, we'll wait for him to hop back on.
There's still an echo. Chanel, can you hear me? I wish you can't hear me.
All right. So we're back here.
Are you gonna hop back on Facebook Live?
All right, so I'm back on live. Hold on.
Okay. We're back.
We are back.
Technical difficulties.
Jesus, the technology. All right. All right, good deal. So, all right, I think we left off on, got the idea down. Now we're going to talk about making the formal agreement, back and forth with the franchisor, etc.
Okay. Yeah, so the next step, like after you sign your franchise agreement, well, I should kind of backtrack. Prior to signing the agreement, you'll receive a document called the FDD. It's the franchise disclosure document. And it is like a 400-page document that has everything you need to know about this business that you're buying into. It'll have all of the financial, any legal disputes that they've been in. They have all of the numbers to prior owners, current owners, different things like that. The idea behind the FDD is that it gives you all of the information you need to make an educated decision on whether you want to be a part of, the business or not. This is such an important document to read, or at least have someone read for you, an attorney, because you want to know, like, what are you getting, what are you agreeing to? It'll also let you know more details on, what's expected of you as a franchisee and what you can expect from the franchisor. So, all of the fees associated with it, or, what can they do? Can they take your franchise if you're not following the operational guidelines? You do all those different type of things. So super, super important document. I would say that's probably one of the most important documents other than your lease, involved in the process. But you would evaluate that, make sure that you agree with everything and, it aligns with what you want. Then you sign the franchise agreement. And then from there, it really is about finding the right location, squaring up your financing, if that's the route that you're going to go. And there's a lot of documents that you'll need in place for when you do go to get financing, one of which is like your business plan. Like with any business, you're going to need that. A pro forma, they want to know, what are your projections? How do you think you'll be doing? What type of sales do you think you'll do? Those are kind of like the main things. You're going to need your financing. You got to find the right location. Yeah, I mean, I guess what other specific questions do you have around that?
Yeah. So
I want to make sure I'm
financing, are you getting like traditional commercial like how does financing work? Who's financing the deal?
So it's going to depend on your situation, the business, all those things. For us, our first location was bootstrapped a little bit. We definitely went like a very non-traditional route. Most business owners, most people, when they're buying a franchise, they're going to go SBA. They'll have an SBA loan. However, ours was very non-traditional. We used, some personal capital, of course. We even used credit cards. Like when I say we bootstrapped this thing, like it was like like hell or high water that those doors were going to get open, but it was not like a smooth sailing. We actually heard no from a ton of lenders, and it's funny. We opened up our third location yesterday, actually, and we sent an email to our lender that we now have, and they wrote back and they're like, oh, we look forward to doing so many more deals with you and all this stuff. And I posted it because that was not the case with the first store, and I want to be like super transparent, and hopefully it's to inspire someone who may have heard no, or they might hear no from a lender the first time. Like, you've got to keep pushing, because we literally heard no from maybe 6-7 lenders. And we sometimes still hear no, depending on like when we started the Hand and Stone, it was a new business. So, they're like, nope, we don't want to take a chance on this. So, you're going to hear no a lot potentially throughout the journey, especially when it comes to financing. And I just feel like in our community as well, there's a little bit of a barrier in access to capital and financing and all those things. And so, just to encourage folks that we heard the same thing on our first store. We figured out another way. There's always alternative financing. Of course, you can go to the bank and you can do SBA. That's very traditional, but there's also private lending. There is, you can lease your equipment if you need to. You can, do all different types of things to get the deal done. So I always just encourage folks, if you hear no does not mean no. It means no from that one lender, and there are like thousands of lenders out there. So.
Okay. All right, that's very helpful, because I think, in my experience, when I'm talking about investing or ownership or business or entrepreneurship, a lot of times financing is what gets people caught up.
It's the number one question I get. The
Yeah.
number one. Like, how much is it gonna cost? How do I get financing? And that, I mean, that's just the reality of things. And I think sometimes folks are surprised too when they realize, and I shouldn't downplay how much money it does cost to get started, but I think, like, I had a conversation with someone the other day who was like, oh, I thought I needed like $300,000 to buy a tropical smoothie. I'm like, well, that is the total investment, but you personally don't need that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times lenders are asking for 10 to 15% down. If you're doing a $300,000 project, that's $30,000. Then that starts to become a little bit more attainable and realistic than, oh, I need, $500,000 or something. So I think a lot of times when I tell folks too, just like how much, how accessible it can be, they're also surprised about that.
Yeah, definitely. And especially if you split it between somebody else. Like if your partner, 30,000 turns into 10, right?
Yep. And I mean, that's what, it's three of us. It's my mom, my sister, and I. So anything that we do, it's, just divided by 3, which makes it so much more attainable in that case.
Right. Yeah. All right. So what about professional help? Did you need like a lawyer and all that to look through that 400-page document and give you advice?
100%. I would never sign a franchise agreement without an attorney looking at everything. So we do have an attorney. Also, you're going to want an attorney to look at your lease. There's a lot, and you want an attorney specifically who does franchise work so that they know exactly what to look for in the agreements. A lot of times they're really not going to negotiate a lot of things within your agreement, but every so often you can get some things negotiated. One thing that I always suggest to pay close attention to, for instance, like with a tropical smoothie, you want to look at what your protected territory is. Can they put another tropical smoothie 0.4 miles away from you? And then what will that do for your business? That's like a really, really big thing that you're going to want an attorney to help you negotiate, is that get a bigger territory so that your business is protected. So you definitely want an attorney to look over the lease, to look over your FDD and the actual franchise agreement. And they'll know especially if they're a franchise attorney, they will know what they can kind of push back on. Because most of it, I would say like 95% of all the documents that you're going to get, like, you can't really change anything in them. But there are like certain little nuggets that you can change that are like very critical. So I would suggest, before moving forward, definitely getting someone who's specifically familiar with franchising.
Nice. That territory clause, that's key. I never would have thought that.
100%. Otherwise, you'll look up, and I mean, if you guys saw kind of like what happened with like Subway and like some of those other brands, like they just stacked all these businesses on top of each other. And, instead of you now making, what you were making before, your revenue goes down significantly. So you definitely want to make sure that your territory is protected.
Yeah, definitely. All right. What about any accountants on the team to help with the financial side?
I mean, of course, we have an accountant, of course. But I guess like in the beginning stages, we didn't necessarily. It was more so like we now have a business accountant. Who else is on the team? I mean, one thing I would always say is just like also just seeking mentorship. So, from folks that are in the brand, we are always seeking, someone that like right now, we reached out most recently to like a multi-unit owner who owns like 50 plus McDonald's, like reaching out to them and figuring out, what should we be doing? What should we not be doing? So that's what we did before we ever even got started, was like reaching out to current owners. What has their experience been like, what to do, what not to do. So mentorship in this whole thing has been like our underlying, like, I think that's like the biggest key to anything. It's like finding someone who's already doing it and making sure that you don't either make the same mistakes or, you can avoid some mistakes. So that's huge.
Yeah. Okay, definitely. All right. So I think we talked about the idea, back and forth with the franchisor, making sure you get the agreement signed, looked at, and all that stuff. So agreement signed, we're in it, we're going to do this franchise. What happens next as far as like the build out, keeping the store open? How do we get this thing in business now?
Yeah, so the build out, you're gonna have to find a contractor, of course, to do your build out. And that can, as I mentioned, that timeline, because that's a lot of folks question, like how long will it take, will just range on what type of location you're choosing. So as I mentioned, our very first store was a new development. So it was a brand new shopping shopping center. Actually, our first and our second store was a brand new shopping center. So the development there was significantly longer. Like you're looking at 12 to 18 months, for a project like that. But if you go with a second generation space, which basically just means that something was already there, another business, and you're just taking over the space and now outfitting it to whatever your brand is, then it can be significantly quicker. But I would say that the longest process in all of this, in our experience, has been like the lease negotiation. There is so much that kind of goes on in that lease negotiation that could easily take 6+ months just negotiating the lease. And then of course your build out is typically a little bit faster. I mean, of course it's going to depend on what brand you're choosing, but our build out is typically like 60 days. And then I always say that there's always delays. So like our 60 days is typically like 120 because something happens with permitting or, some delay. And the moral of the whole story is like patience is going to be a really, really big piece of the entire journey because there's delays and things like that throughout the whole process, but it's worth it. And the timing always works out perfectly. So.
Nice. What about employees? Do you hire them before you open the store and like where you posting a job post? How's that work?
So the great part about, again, being in a franchise is that they literally give you the entire, it's almost like a timeline that you'll get. They training and like hiring usually doesn't happen too much before you open, maybe like 30 to 60 days before you open. But then your brand, whoever you choose, is going to come in. They will train your entire staff. They'll train you. For instance, we had no food background or anything like that when we opened our first tropical smoothie. They came in and trained us on everything. Same with the spa. We never owned or operated a spa. They came in and trained us on that. You also go to franchise training, which is typically anywhere from like 3 days to a week. And you'll learn all of the back end things there as well. So the training is the other great, I would say, benefit of buying into a franchise is that you're not kind of doing this blindly. They're with you every single step of the way to train your team, but then also train you as an owner and operator. Yep. So there's a ton of support there. But as far as finding how do we actually find our employees, it is a combination of so much. One great thing too with being in a franchise is that, the brand recognition that you have, a lot of times employees come to us. We don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money in recruiting because one, they see the signage, they see that something's coming, to their neighborhood and they're applying just based off of that alone. But when we do have to recruit, it's a combination of LinkedIn Recruiter. I use that a lot. Right now, specifically when I'm looking for maybe higher level leadership, like an assistant manager or manager, using LinkedIn Recruiter, we're using Indeed. We use social media, but those are kind of like our main platforms to recruit.
All right. Awesome. All right. So what about like opening day and then like the day-to-day of after you are you spending how many hours are you spending, maybe a week or a month, actually running the business?
So it's gonna depend on, again, like the type of franchise that you choose, but specifically for us at Tropical Smoothie, that first year we were there all the time. I would go before work and then I would go to work and then I would come there in the evenings, and that happened literally probably for the entire first year. But now we definitely can take our hands off of it a lot more. I mentioned that we just celebrated 4 years today. We now have leadership in place. We have a multi-unit manager who manages 2 of our stores, 2 of the 3. So our hands are definitely like it's a lot more off. But I always say if you want something that's like sit it and forget it, I would be very wary to kind of go into franchising because most brands aren't really like that. And especially not in the beginning. We've talked to a couple of owners over at Hand and Stone, and they've said that after you kind of hit your break-even point and you've ramped up your business, your membership is where it needs to be, then you can kind of step back a little bit. But in every business, you're going to always be in it. And so now we're probably spending, and I don't live in Maryland anymore, I live in Miami, so I'm spending I do basically everything I can do remotely, probably about 5 to 10 hours a week. But that's because I'm not in the area. My mom, however, probably does about, I don't know, maybe like 20 hours all in all. But it's just going to depend on the brand, what type of leadership you have in place. Before we had like managers, you're there all the time because no one else is there. And I would say in the beginning, you're going to want to be there all the time because it's a significant investment that you're making. A lot of times, like for us at least, like our first store, our houses were on the line, all different types of things. So I don't know too many people who want to sign up their house as collateral and then walk away from the business and leave it to like a 14-year-old who's running your cashier register. Like, no. So we were there all the time for that reason alone, because I'm like, where we lay our heads are kind of up for grabs. So, that was like a really important part. But, all of the time investment is going to just depend on the type of business. And I will say that that's something that you want to really think about before you choose the brand. That kind of goes into like that brand research. You really need to be honest with yourself. Like, do you want to be in there every day? Or, just how much time do you want to commit to it? And then once you know that information, it helps you when you're reaching out to like current owners and past owners of the brand. You can find out like the real deal, because the brand may tell you like, oh yeah, you can just hire a manager and walk away. But you want to find out from people who are really in it, like, is that true? Is it not true? So that's like a really, really critical piece of like choosing the right brand, would be making sure that that time commitment aligns with what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we were in person, I would ask the audience to give you a round of applause for 4 years. So congratulations on that. But since we're virtual, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are, please hit the like button, leave a comment, share, leave a virtual clap, wave, something for 4 years and for this wonderful entrepreneur. So definitely congratulations on that. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. So, all right. So we kind of talked about the idea, opening it, kind of running it the day to day. So if you do have questions on Facebook or Instagram, start putting them in there now. We're getting to the last couple of questions. I have some questions that folks that have already sent. One was, you mentioned mentors. Is there any specific place you think people could find a mentor, or tips for finding a mentor maybe?
I would say, the brand is a great way. They can connect you with a mentor. Once you're kind of like in the brand, they definitely can connect you with someone who, has been in the brand for a while, or, whatever you're looking for. I'm trying to think, different associations is a great way to connect with a mentor. So I had mentioned in the beginning of the interview that we're involved with Choice Hotels, and we're in the process of developing our first hotel. So I've joined every association that is possible for hotels, and I've been able to connect with a ton of mentors through that. So I would say if you can find like an association or something, that's a great way. Start going to conferences whenever we can go back to them in person. But that's a great way to find mentors. And also every brand will have like a national convention, or they'll do like a discovery day, and those are great places when you go to those type of events to connect with folks. Yeah. Or Instagram, find someone who, is already doing it and reach out to them. And I think you'll be very surprised how willing people are to talk with you or share their experience. So I would say if you found somebody online or something, reach out and see if they, give you 15, 20 minutes of their time.
Yeah, I was going to save this for one of the last, but you actually offer some consulting and some help for people that are looking to get into franchising. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
For sure. So we developed an online course called So You Want to Buy a Franchise. And the reason we developed it was because we get so many questions. We actually get so many people reaching out to us like, oh, how do I do this? How do I start? Where do I find financing? And while we do talk to pretty much everyone that reaches out, and we try to, give that support and that mentorship, it is hard because a lot of the questions that they ask are very loaded. If you ask me, how do I get financing? Oh my God, that's not a 15-minute call. Like that is an hour and a half and so much other things. So that is the main reason why we developed the course, is that it goes through pretty much every question that we used to get: where to start, how to pick the right brand, how do I find financing, building your business plan, building your pro forma, so many different things, how to understand the FDD. Pretty much it takes you from start to finish. Of getting started in franchising. And so that course is online. You can find all of the details at healthylivingventures.teachable.com. And it's a self-paced course, so you can take it, at any pace, start, stop, and you have access to it at all times. Because what we find is that you may run through it the first time, and then you get started in the process, and then you're like, wait, let me go back. And now I'm at the point where I'm reading the FDD. Let me go back to that module. So it's a total of 10 modules. There's downloads that are included with it. It's a business plan template, performa template, and a bunch of other worksheets that can kind of help you flush out your ideas and, get everything on paper. And we also offer consulting outside of that. So you can take that self-paced course, and if you have no other questions, then that's great. It also comes with a 30-minute free consultation, because people will always have questions. So that we understand, and it'll come with one consultation. But, outside of that, if you said, hey, I really need support from start to finish, we have a package for that. Or if you just say, hey, I need like 2-3 hours, of support, then there's, several different options for that. And all that information is on our website. And you can also email me if you're interested, or reach out on Instagram. And our email is healthylivingventures@gmail.com.
Awesome. All right, so got another question here. Nervous to work with family. Any tips for that?
I mean, I've been very blessed, because my working relationship with my mom and my sister is like very, very good. But I would say, not even like working with family, but working with anyone, I would say that you need to make sure that everyone is aligned, your vision is aligned, that you're on the same page financially, personally. Everyone has the same idea about how much time you're going to be investing in the business, how much money you're going to be investing. You just want to make sure that all of those things are kind of put out there in the beginning. But then you also want to make sure that everything is in writing, because everyone's best friends when things start, but if things get a little fuzzy, that's when all the issues start. So I just say that, like, I think you need to handle it like you would handle how you would do business with a stranger. I would say do the same with family or friends, is everything's in writing, and then also for us, like, my mom and my sister are my best friends, and we can literally like turn that on and off a little bit. So when it's like business time, we do kind of have to turn that sister-mom relationship over a little bit, because you got to get in business mode, and there's things that got to get done, and things like that. So I think you also have to have that ability to be able to kind of turn it on and off. Or if something's going on in the business and it's kind of sour, you got to turn that off also to get back to your mother, sister, or friend relationship. So it's kind of a little bit of an art, because you do have to kind of bounce back and forth. But I think the biggest key, more than anything, is just making sure that your vision is aligned, and that you all have the same, also like exit strategy. Are you thinking that you want to be in this business for the next 10 years, and maybe your partner is thinking like, oh, this is like a 2-year to 5-year thing? You just kind of want to make sure that all those things are laid out in the beginning before you pay money and you sign all these deals and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Exit strategy is a whole other key itself.
Yes.
Can you repeat the website?
Yes, it's healthylivingventures with an S .teachable.com. I think I can put it, but no, people can't see my comments. If I comment it, they can?
Yeah.
Let me see. Sorry, guys, you gotta look at my ceiling. It's also in the link in my bio on my Instagram page.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but I'll put it here. Okay. And then our email is the same. It's healthylivingventures@gmail.com. So if you had questions about consulting or anything like that, you can reach out on our email. And we do a consulting call. Like, let's say you say, I think I need consulting. We can do like a 15-20-minute call to talk about what you need, when you need it, and things like that. So if you're interested, just reach out.
Awesome. All right, so my last question is, what's next for you as far as just other businesses, where you're going with the franchises? What's next for you?
So growth. I just want to grow and own as many franchises as possible. Right now, as I mentioned, we have 3. We just won a bid to open up 2 additional locations in the DMV area of Tropical Smoothie Cafe. We're opening up our first Hand and Stone massage and facial next month. And then the great part about just getting started is that so many opportunities just begin to kind of fall in your lap once you're in the game. So many other brands have reached out to us, like, are you interested in opening, locations of their brand? So now we're looking at bringing an additional brand to everywhere that we have, like our tropical smoothies. So the idea is just growth. I always say that, like, in franchising, the biggest key, I would say, is multi-unit ownership. If you own one, that's great, and you'll make, a good amount of money. But the biggest key is, like, when you can own multiple locations, that's when you really see, like, the benefit of franchising. And so that's the goal right now, is just to expand as much as we can throughout the East Coast, throughout the DMV area, add additional brands to our portfolio. I mentioned that we are in the process of developing our first hotel. So that's, like, my big goal, a little bit more long-term, a lot more investment than, like, the tropical smoothie. But that's a big goal of mine in the near future. And then growing also our course and our mentoring program. I want to see more of folks that look like me in the franchising game. We go to, like, some of these conventions and look around and we're like, what's going on? Like, it's like 2 or 3 of us in the room, and I want to see a lot more of us at the table. So that was another reason why we developed the course and developed, like, our mentorship program, is that it's a lot more attainable. I think people sometimes are just a little bit nervous about jumping out there, but if you had someone in your corner leading you who's already done it, and also, leading you and mentoring you, I think you'd be a lot more confident in it. So, next is just hoping to develop other multi-unit franchise owners, and develop our portfolio as much as we can.
Awesome. All right. So where can people find out more about you? I will let you plug email, Instagram, all that stuff one more time, just for folks that might have joined late or missed the first time.
So Instagram, Chanel.Grant. The link for the course is in my bio, and it's healthylivingventures.teachable.com. And reach out to me if you have questions. We're like an open book, and we're always willing to, as I mentioned, like, set up a call and quick call, but we're always willing to set up a call and, like, chat with you, because, as I mentioned, the goal is really to see a lot more of us at the table. And I think that starts when you share your experience, share your knowledge. So you can reach out via Instagram, or, like I mentioned, our email is healthylivingventures@gmail.com. But I think the biggest thing is going to be, like, get educated, and you can do that by taking the course. So I will definitely plug that. I think that's a huge key. That's a great place to start if you're thinking about getting into franchising. And I would say just do it. Like, start. Oh, thanks. She said she loves this shirt. It's the Hubbies. It says, "I'm building generational wealth." Yeah, so I would say just get started. The first store or the first location that you are, going to open is probably going to be the most difficult. But, from there, opportunities present themselves, and lending gets easier. Everything gets easier after the first one. So just get started. Yeah.
Nice. All right, good deal. Well, Chanel, I appreciate your time very much. I know you are a busy woman with multiple businesses and franchises and a new family and all that stuff. So I truly appreciate your time. I think people have got a bunch of keys out of this. When you get the hotel chain up, we got to have you back. But no, I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me, and I hope this was helpful for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we are going to get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for joining another edition of the Bag Talk Show, and we will connect next time. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, take care.